but a team that has a lot of questions around it itself. That is the Philadelphia Phillies. And for that, we bring in Phillies insider Frank Klose from 97.3 ESPN.com as we take a look at some of the battles and things that are happening down in Clearwater, where Frank will be tomorrow with the Philadelphia Phillies. And tomorrow, Frank will be down there, which means we'll have live updates from him on the Phillies next week. Let's bring him in on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. Frank, what's happening, man?
Not much. How are you, Mike?
All is well. Phillies in action today, by the way. It was Nick Pivetta getting the start. 2 2/3, I should say, a hit, 5 strikeouts, and just the 1 earned run, 2 walks. I know Pivetta had a shaky first outing, but some of that could be that he's working on a new pitch, the changeup, and I don't know if you got a chance to watch him at all today, but 5 strikeouts, that's got to be encouraging.
Yeah, I mean, I've been listening to the game. They're all the way down in Fort Myers, and usually when the Phillies make that trip, they play the Twins and the Red Sox back-to-back because they share a facility down there. And so usually they send a handful of guys, not everybody. So that has looked okay. The first couple of runners got on today, and he was trying to get through the 3rd inning, and he didn't make it through. But charged with just that 1 run. The strikeouts are always nice, but you want to see a little bit more command otherwise. But again, this time of year, it's really, really hard to tell since, again, as you just said, they're working on pitches and, he's not working with his catcher. David Grullon was the catcher who made the trip down and caught him today. So he hasn't worked with Real Muto yet. So there's still a lot of spring left, but it's kind of hard to overanalyze some of these outings.
With that, I mean, I don't know. We've only seen a handful of these guys. I mean, Pavetta's only got he's the first one to get 2 starts. Eflin threw the other day. Ranger Suarez, who you have mentioned. I know we don't have enough of body of work, but how are you, Frank, handicapping the 4 and 5 spots in the rotation?
Well, I think Zach Eflin is pretty secure at number 4. I think they seem very confident in him, and he's almost guaranteed a spot. I know often in the past it was Eflin, Pivetta, Velasquez all kind of lumped in the same boat. Now I think Eflin is sort of separated from the pack, and he's probably assured that 4th spot in the rotation. But then after that, I think it's kind of up in the air. This is a new set of eyes this spring, and Brian Price and Joe Girardi, they're gonna be the ones who decide. They don't have any loyalty to these guys from the past. They're going to watch them pitch this spring and give their feedback. And it's so in a way it's kind of like wide open for that 5th spot because they need to see these guys. And like I've said before, I think they really could have used some more competition for that slot. I mean, even in terms of like AAA depth, there's nobody that really stands out as someone that you could go grab if you need to. They hope Spencer Howard will come along some point, but they don't want to burn him early and then not have him later in the season when they figure they'll probably need him. But I think right now we're all ears should be on Brian Price and Joe Girardi and seeing what they feel about these guys because again the spring results in terms of numbers don't necessarily matter. But their impressions will mean all the world this spring.
Well, what about, Brian Price as the pitching coach and how you think that will affect things? It already seems like a lot of the pitchers I've seen and I have noticed in the short time that he's been here that Eflin, Pivetta, Velasquez have kind of mentioned him by name and have certainly talked about the changes that he has made. What do you think the significance is of Brian Price being the pitching coach after what they've had the last couple of years under Gabe Kapler?
Well, Brian Price is somebody the Phillies have liked for a long time, and there were some reports that the Phillies tried to hire him when he ended up becoming Cincinnati Reds manager. So he did get to manage the Reds for a few years, and after that ended, he was available again as a pitching coach, and the Phillies hired him. But what the players are saying so far is that he seems to instill sort of a sense of confidence and that people can kind of be who they are. And, I think what happens too often now in this game that's very data-driven and number-driven is that sometimes, the numbers suggest that something will work if you just implement it. and the individual pitcher, it's just not for them. So, there's certainly a mental part of this game too, and I think that he just gets them to relax, let them feel like they can work to their strengths, and it recognizes that, everybody's different. And so with Brian Price, it sounds like what you get is the players get the confidence to pitch to their strengths rather than trying to conform to a wider philosophy, and of course last year, as we've often heard with Chris Young, very data driven, and that did not work out for the Phillies.
Yeah, Eflin, by the way, had a pair of hitless innings on Wednesday in his spring debut, so he pitched well. Velasquez, I did hear him say in the past we had heard that they wanted him to throw everything up. They wanted to elevate everything, which is something you really don't ever hear people tell pitchers. Hey, I want you to elevate the ball. Although I get it, he throws really hard, and they feel like if you can get the ball up over your hands, that is. But to be your main philosophy and not mix in keeping the ball down. But Velasquez did seem at more that this message is getting to him, that keeping the ball down is something that it seems like resonating more with Velasquez than the message he was getting last year.
Yeah, and Jake Arrieta offered similar sentiments as well. That for especially old school guys like Jake Arrieta, that's what they're used to, and to have that shift that they experienced it was just last year, because Rick Kranitz was more traditional, but of course, he was working alongside with Chris Young for that year 2 years ago. But especially for the old school guys like Arrieta, I think they feel a lot better. There seems to be a certain sense of confidence, and when I get down there, that'll be certainly one thing I'm trying to gauge is what people think about this.
Frank Klose covers the Phils, 97.3 ESPN.com. What is your read, Frank, on the Segura Kingery? Now, today Kingery's playing shortstop, which I found to be kind of interesting. You're trying to get him to start to play a new position, and then you move him to shortstop right away, 3 games into 4 games, 5 games into spring training. But do we feel that it's already kind of mapped itself out that Kingery's going to play second and Segura's going to play third? Or do you think at some point after X amount of games you guys flip and let's see how that works out? Or do you think it's kind of settled in?
Well, I will say for today's defensive alignment, I think a lot of it has less to do with any indication of the future than it does them simply only taking certain players down to Fort Myers. Nick Williams is playing center field. Nick Williams probably will not play center field for the Phillies anytime soon. So, with these guys, you want to give them the rest, and I think that in this case, they wanted to see Logan Forsythe at second base and Neil Walker at third base. And I think Kingery's just kind of there for the day. And let's face it, too, he's not going to play shortstop if Didi Gregorius is on the team. So I think it's just because he's versatile and they're trying to see these other guys. I think that's what's behind that today. But I still tend to think that that Scott Kingery is going to go to second base and play second base, and that's going to be his position. And I think Gene Segura as somebody who's played on the left side and can still play on the left side for shifts, and probably will go back to shortstop later in his career. Once Didi Gregorius departs as a free agent, in an ideal world, Alec Boehm comes up is tremendous, and then he can sort of take over the roster spot that Gregorius has at some point, because Gregorius is only signed for this year. But, you don't want to think that far ahead. You have what's in front of you right now, and I think that the alignment of Segura at third is perhaps better in that it just lets Scott Kingery man his natural position and just roll with it. And today, yeah, he's at shortstop, but I think it's just a matter of, the Fort Myers is no quick trip from Clearwater. So this is the one trip where they stay overnight, even a lot of them. So I think this is just a matter of travel logistics.
All right, Frank, real quick, couple more with Frank Klose on the Phillies. They are, of course, smack in the middle of spring training. The other day, Odubel Herrera came out and made his first comments. Now, he's a minor league invitee, but they still owe him $17 million, correct?
Yes, he still owed all that money.
All right.
About almost 20.
So if he's there in camp, is he getting a legitimate look because of that contract, or is this just a courteous because we still have to pay you, we're going to at least have you here doing something? Do you think he is in the mix to make this team and play center field? Because if he had not gotten in trouble would we all agree that he would be the center fielder?
I don't think he would be, to be honest with you. I don't think his performance on the field necessarily justified that. If he didn't get in trouble, he might have still been designated for assignment and might have still cleared waivers and might have still been assigned to the minor leagues. Difference might be they might have let him be an invitee into the major league camp. He is not in major league camp, so that seems to make a big statement. And I think there are some rules with the Players Association of not punishing a guy twice, and he served his suspension. And the thought often is if you release a guy or trade a guy, it's almost like a second penalty. And that's something that's not really allowed. Now, what probably would be the best solution for everybody is somebody gets to watch him play a little bit on that minor league camp, thinks that maybe that he can help their team, and they work out a trade of some sort. Or if maybe Odubel's agent asks the Phillies to release him, and that comes from the Herrera side of things. But Odubel certainly was very contrite about it. I mean, he's done everything that was asked of him in terms of going to counseling and stuff like that. And I did read that he even went to counseling beyond the required counseling. And so maybe somebody will be willing to take a shot on him. And I thought of like the Pittsburgh Pirates maybe who traded Starling Marte, they might be able to use somebody. So who knows? Maybe if they see him play some of these minor league games and feel like that if the Phillies pay the bill, they'll take him in a trade. But it's kind of hard to say how this is all going to play out. But I mean, the Phillies have so many outfielders in camp, and not all of them can even make the team. So and certainly South Jersey is rooting for Matt Caesar, but he's got an uphill battle as it is himself. So. It's another guy that they have Kyle Garlick they traded for, and Nick Martini's hanging around, and that's in addition to Nick Williams, who is still kind of floating out there in limbo. So he's really buried down in the depth chart too.
Yeah, and I agree with that. You got Hazley, you obviously got Roman Quinn. You mentioned Nick Williams, who can play center if you needed him to. Caesar's down there. So, yeah, I just feel that contract's looming of, man, we got to pay this guy. Someone else will probably pick him up. Why isn't it just us? And I'm not advocating for that. I don't mind getting rid of him. I think what he did, he admitted that he did it, and he served his penalty. He's now back. I have no problem with them getting rid of him. I just wonder if that's what they're thinking. That's all.
Yeah, it sounds like I forget who reported it, but one of the major writers that got to talk to him the other day basically said that internally the Phillies seem split on Herrera, so that there's some that don't seem like they're willing to give him a chance again. It seems to be the sentiment that I got from that. And let's face it, too, as Matt Klentak said sometimes that for baseball reasons, that this is very different than when he departed. There's many more options for the Phillies, and he wasn't playing that well when the incident occurred.
All right, I want to get your take on the bullpen because we have not seen Sir Anthony Dominguez. He was expected to be ready for spring training, but so far he has not made an appearance. You've got, obviously, Hector Neris, who's going to be your closer. David Robertson is not going to be available, if at all, until at least halfway through the season. Adam Morgan, after that, I guess everything's up in the air. Is there any definitive pieces in that bullpen? And I know that we haven't seen a lot. We've got Drew Storen in these, he pitched the other day. We've got a bunch of guys who were pretty good like 4 years ago that are hanging around camp here, but what do you see this bullpen kind of shaping out as to this point?
To be quite frank, I have no idea. Hector Neris and Jose Alvarez, they seem like the ones that were the most reliable last year. Adam Morgan looks healthy, so but they added other lefties. So this is really. I don't know. I really don't know where this is going. To be quite honest with you, they have a lot of options, but no real certainties. And I get it that there really weren't that many options to sign aside from Blake Trinan and Dylan Betances, who both got $10 million or more last offseason and are major question marks. Phillies didn't necessarily have $10 million under the luxury tax to roll the dice on those kinds of guys. So. So they seem primed to let people compete for this, and you assume that one of Vince Velasquez or Nick Pivetta, or really two out of the three, if you include Ranger Suarez, will end up in this bullpen. But yeah, it's got to play itself out, and Dominguez, he's supposed to throw soon. I think they're just trying to take it easy on him, but if you don't have Dominguez, I mean, then really, who's really your right-handed setup arm? That's something which is not really clear. And Bud Norris didn't pitch last year. Drew Storen didn't pitch last year. I feel best, perhaps, at this point of Francisco Liriano, of the guys that they brought in on minor league deals, because I did get to see Liriano pitch a few times last year, and I thought the Phillies should have traded for him last year, but this is going to be one which is very difficult to figure out, and maybe we're like the last week of spring training. We start to have some idea who kind of separates from the pack, but there's so many arms. Hopefully they get their opportunities to play, and maybe that's what they're doing right now. Maybe that has something to do with Dominguez not pitching because they want to take it slow, but they also want to see some of these other guys first.
Well, typically you go 7 arms in the bullpen?
Well, they'll go 8 arms in the bullpen.
All right, so I got Neris as your closer. I got Dominguez as your setup guy. I got Liriano, who can be in that 8th inning setup role as a lefty. Then you got Suarez and Pivetta. I'm just imagining those two guys get bumped and Velasquez gets the starter job. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then Adam Morgan 6, which means I got Garcia, Storen, Arano, Cole Irvin, and then the field as the rest of the guys. Does that sound somewhat accurate?
Probably. They have Anthony Suarez.
Oh, Jose Alvarez, too. I forgot about him.
Yeah, Alvarez is probably a good bet, but there'll probably be somebody from like the Anthony Suarez and Bud Norris and Drew Storen type. And what's going to happen too to a lot of these guys at the end? They're going to have to either give them $100,000 roster bonus to stick around the organization, or they're going to have to cut them. So, right now there's a lot of people, but there's going to be a lot of people that are probably just straight cut at the end, and they'll stash the ones at AAA they can. The one name that you didn't mention that again we need to really see him pitch and see how healthy he is Victor Arano
and Tommy Hunter.
Tommy Hunter might be a little while. So I talked to somebody that knows Hunter personally, and he basically said, well, he's not sure how ready he'll be yet. But so we'll see. We need to see these guys throw. And I mean, Arano and Hunter, they did have their good streaks with the Phillies, and if they can show they're healthy, I think they might have some sort of priority from the right side in the bullpen. But again, there's just so many guys, and it could come down to a roster crunch, and it could come down to who they can stash at AAA, and who might be on the injured list when the season starts. So there's so much going on right now. Now, Tommy Hunter's a major league deal, so he's either going to be healthy or he's going to be in the major leagues pretty much.
Yeah, and so you got a lot of bullpen battles going on down there. You got the battle for the 5th spot. And other than that, I mean, really not a lot of jobs up for grabs in the starting spot. Let's just go to that. They brought in a bunch of these guys, Frank, that – you got, man, I'm trying to rake my brain over Neil Walker, Josh Harrison, Logan Forsythe. You've got, a lot of these like older utility type of players. What kind of battles do we see for the bench spots?
Well, I've always really liked Neil Walker. I've always really liked Josh Harrison, and I've always really liked Logan Forsythe. And all three of them, probably don't fit on the roster at the same time when you consider that the outfield is going to be you're going to have obviously Harper in right, and then you're going to have McCutchen in left, and then center will be Hastley Quinn, and then beyond that you might have room for one more because there's an extra roster spot. So there is opportunity. You can put any of those guys in the outfield if you really want to. But all of them have a nice major league resume on them, and so far you see that let's not forget Phil Gosselin, who's always done a nice job off the bench as well. So they have a lot of these guys that can fill these roles, and I really don't know how they're going to choose from them. They almost went with quantity on purpose because they don't want to be left short. Yeah. Scott Kingery for years played that valuable role where he played some, shortstop, second base, third base, outfield, both in center and left field. So he's had played such a valuable role in bouncing all over the place. And I think that the Harrisons and the
Harrison's
Walkers,
in left field today, by the way.
Yeah, the two of them probably are the most versatile in terms of bouncing around. Forsythe can do that a little bit too. You might see him more at first, second, third than you do.
Two
at,
more hits for him today. He's
shortstop.
hitting 571.
Yeah, again, great bat. When Chase Utley got traded to the Dodgers, he was on that team and he started for the Dodgers and he sort of platooned with Chase Utley for a while, but he was paid pretty well in his heyday too, I must say. But really, all three of them are valuable, and I think that one thing too that the Phillies recognize and they've talked about is even the fact that their actual starting players can be a little versatile with where they play. So, I mean, as long as McCutchen and Harper are going to play every day and right and left, you'll probably still see Bruce in left field sometimes as McCutchen sort of gets back on track, and you don't want to put too much pressure on that knee. They're pretty stocked in terms of having Kingery and Segura being able to bounce around if necessary, and they've got options to play first base from any of those bench guys now. So and Jay Bruce can back up Rhys Hoskins at first base too. So there's a lot of versatility on the roster. So I think what they needed the most is a veteran bat, and make sure they have one that can hit well from the left side and one can hit from the right side. And Neil Walker's a switch hitter, so I think he's got the best chance to make the team. But also Harrison and Forsythe might be hard to decide between.
The Powder Blue podcast host Frank Klose. You can hear it on Tuesday nights from 6 to 7 right here on 97.3 ESPN. Now you will be in Clearwater tomorrow.
Yep, flying down early as I can tomorrow. I'm even going to Trenton to fly out of there so I could get there early as possible. So should be a good week. I'll be there till Wednesday. And
now I don't want you sending me pictures of the Clearwater Bait House in the middle of the show. All right, I don't want you sending me any pictures of those tuna nachos in the middle of the show. All right, you can maybe do it like after the show, but I don't want them during.
Hey, you'll be there in a couple of weeks anyway. You'll
I know,
all right.
but these last couple, like the last 3 weeks leading up, the anticipation is like, all right, I just want to get there, I want to get there, I want to get there. When you start sending me the pictures, that's not fair. Now, I talked to Scott Lauber last week, and I recommended the Bait House to him. He had never been there before, so I'm waiting to see. You'll have to ask him, hey, I heard Mike Gill tell you about the Bait House. Did you ever make it over there?
Yeah, you got me under the Bait House. I did not know about it before you. So I mean, like, not that they're a paid sponsor or anything, but whatever they serve is whatever the boat pulls up to the restaurant with that day. So it's that fresh.
Right, exactly. And if you bring your own fish and just say, "Hey, I caught this about an hour ago," they'll cook it up for you.
Yes, they will. I probably won't get much fishing in, but But yeah, it can't be fresher than that.
All right, so Frank will be in Clearwater all weekend through next week, and we will have his updates right here on the Sports Bash. And don't forget, check out the Powder Blue podcast Tuesday nights right here on 97.3 ESPN. It drops Monday on our website, so you can listen to it Monday on the website, Tuesday on the radio, and anytime on 97.3ESPN.com. Frank Hunter and Jeff Mosher doing a great job with the Powder Blue podcast. Thanks, Frank.
Thanks, Mike.
All right, buddy. Frank Klose, like all guests, up here via the Boardwalk Honda Hotline.